Welcome to Life in Business, the podcast for business owners who want the confidence to grow without having to hustle 24/7. I'm Libby Langley, your host, award-winning no BS business coach and Amazon best-selling author. Join me each week to learn simple and practical strategies for growing your business, growing your profits, growing your confidence, and for having fun in business too. Here's this week's episode. Hello there, Libby Langley here for another episode of Life in Business, your weekly podcast if you want to grow your business without hustling. Because who wants to hustle? Not me. No, thank you very much. I've been there, done that. Not for me. So here we are again. And today I want to kind of go back to the beginning, right? And talk to you about your vision. Now, one of the very first episodes of this podcast, I can't remember what number, but like 1 or 2, and this is 94. So a while ago, I did an episode about why you need a vision and a mission. And subsequently, I have done various vision and mission related episodes. But I wanted to kind of go back and revisit it because honestly, it's one of the single most important things that you need in your business, right? You're in business because you want to do something different. You want to make an impact. You want to change the world in some way, and you don't want a job, right? That's a really important thing. So you want things to be kind of not how they've always been, you know? And I'm guessing as well that you want to have financial freedom and time freedom, right? They seem to be the universal reasons that people start a business. And I've yet to work with a client, and I've worked with over 6,500 people in my time in business. I've yet to meet someone who doesn't want that. So if you're different to that, do message me and let me know what you want that isn't time freedom and financial freedom. So your vision, right? Go back and listen to the early episode if you haven't, although cringing because early days of podcasting, you do kind of get used to it and you get better at it. But it's a good episode. It makes you think a bit differently. So your vision is simply the thing that you would like to happen, right, in life. And when you run your own business, that life in business, it all merges together, so it's there's so much crossover. So when I work with my clients and within my Confidence to Grow group program, the first thing that we start with is a lot of work about vision and mission and why and focus, because you need to, without those foundations, right, it's really, really difficult to do anything else because it's all just kind of stuff and you there's no meaning to it, and there's got to be meaning to this stuff. So the first thing we start with always is vision. And when I first started my business, I did not have a vision, I don't think. I honestly don't believe that I did. I was very, very unhappy in my job. This was 2011, right? So this is a long time ago. I was very, very unhappy in my job. I was very stressed. I was so skinny. I'd lost so much weight. And I just walked out, basically. I just walked out of the job, gave up all the wonderful perks that I had as a manager in the public sector, in the education sector. And my strategy, or kind of my vision for starting a business, was to do it better than them. Because I worked for a college, so I was a commercial development manager. But one of the things that I did was run training courses, commercial ones. And my kind of business startup thing was speaking to a few people who had their own business that I knew through networking, going for lunch with people and saying, right, do you reckon I can make some money by running social media workshops? And they said yes. And I'm like, brilliant. There we go. And lo, a business was born. But it wasn't, that's the reason. That's the reason I did it. I did it because I was so miserable in my job and I was so sick of the effing bureaucracy that happens in the public sector and just being screwed over and life not being fair and all of this stuff. And so it was just to do things differently. And it was just to prove that there was a better, more interesting, more exciting way of doing all this stuff. Because the training I loved, right? And the working with business owners I loved, and the strategy stuff and the consultancy and all that stuff I loved. So I just took those elements and started doing it myself. That was it. And honestly, that was it. So the vision wasn't really, there wasn't like a life vision. But I do remember saying that I wanted to be able to spend more time with my parents. I don't know. And I was young. And I remember Mum saying to me after I'd been in business probably for 2 or 3 years, and I was working a lot of hours and working very hard. And she said, we never see you. I thought you started this business to be able to spend more time with us. And I mean, of course, that's nonsense, right? I didn't do it to spend more time with my parents. I did it because I wanted to prove a point more than anything. So the vision kind of there wasn't really anything there. And then after a couple of years, I split up with my then husband. And so what a life vision we had. The mortgage was a couple of years away from being paid off, and all those glory days, and all that. So life completely changed. And I had 3 years on my own, which were tough. Financially, emotionally, everything. I bought my ex out, and that was very expensive, and it was very difficult. And business, I made all my staff redundant during that time. And, it just was a real not great period in my life. Let's just say that. But since I have the last, 7 or 8 years since I've been with my now husband, life has been great. Life has been much rosier. Life is very happy. I have a really wonderful, solid relationship. It's just fab. And so whatever vision I did or didn't have when I first started the business 13 years ago, it ain't the same now, because I'm much happier in life, right? And I was saying on a coaching call with my Confidence to Grow members the other day about the kind of pillars that you have in life, where you've got your work pillar, you've got your relationship pillar, you've got your home pillar. You have these pillars, right, that have to be steady. And one can wobble, but if they all wobble, then, whoa, that's a really turbulent time. That's a difficult time, because if everything is wobbling, I mean, you can see, right? It's very difficult to focus and to kind of keep going. So the kind of pillars that you need to think about here. Let me rephrase that. The pillars can change, right? The pillars can move. The pillars can be recited in concrete. And so my vision now for life is absolutely different to what it was all those years ago, because I'm in a much more stable relationship, because I'm not as bothered about maybe like the material things in life, I don't think now. I mean, I love a Michelin star tasting menu, don't get me wrong, and I love a nice holiday. But in terms of the house that we live in, we downsized to move to this house that we're in. We've been here a couple of years. We'll probably downsize when we move again. And so those things, I always kind of had this vision. I was going to live in this great big 5-bedroom detached house with a big double garage. And that was like, I've always felt like that would be when I'd made it. And now, honestly, no, I don't want, I got a 4-bedroom house. I don't want any more bedrooms. I don't want any more room. I don't need any more room. A double garage, I don't know. You just fill it with stuff, and we don't have much stuff because we got rid of a lot of stuff when we moved. So it's interesting over the years how your vision changes. And that's the kind of point of this episode today. Is the vision that you have, if you have a vision board. I don't use vision boards. They're kind of not for me, but I know a lot of people do. Is that that fancy car you've got on your vision board or whatever, is that what you actually still want? Because it's really important that we reflect on this stuff and we change and we refocus this vision. Not every 5 minutes, but every year, every couple of years, every 5 years. How often? For me, it's probably every year. Every year or so. I change my mind about what I want from life. But that's okay. That's okay. It doesn't mean that I do up sticks and change everything all the time. But so your vision that you've got, the thing that you want, or the thing that you think that you want, or the thing that you say you want, is it actually what you want? And does age, life situation, I don't know, the age of your kids, the needs of your kids, if you've got kids, family commitments, is the vision that you think you have, is it still what you want? And absolutely, I don't want a big house. I changed my car a year or so ago, went back to a much smaller car. It's fine. I mean, I drive it like once a month. It doesn't matter. I don't need, it's new, but I don't need a big car because I only go as far as getting my eyebrows done, which is like 2 miles away. So I never drive anywhere particularly. If we go anywhere, we go in my husband's car. So it's interesting how, as you get older and as you get more comfortable and confident in yourself, that perhaps some of the things that you thought you wanted, perhaps some of the things that were in your vision, just kind of don't matter anymore. And you may be completely different to this, right? You may still want the big house, or you may already have the big house and the big car and all that. And that's great. But if you think, do you know what? I don't know if I do. I've got 2 bedrooms that I don't use. So maybe I'll just release a bit of equity and go on a few more holidays instead. It's about what you want from life. And the sort of the material stuff isn't always the thing at all. For me, life experiences are far, far more important. I don't have kids, right? So perhaps if you have kids, then building that financial legacy is more important than it is to me who doesn't have kids. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's something that it's worth you thinking about. And at each stage of life, you will have a slightly different vision, a slightly different thing that you're aiming for. And what you wanted 2 years ago, what you wanted during COVID, right, might not be what you want now. So when we sold our house, so I lived for 15 years in a nice, reasonable size 3-bed detached house for 15 years. And that's the one that I lived in with my ex and bought him out of. And then I moved to, because it was just so expensive. I had to give him so much money because we had so much equity. And it was really tough for me, all of that stuff being on my own and everything. And so I sold that and I bought myself a lovely little 2-bedroom terrace, Victorian terrace, and it was lovely. And lived in that for a bit. And then my now husband, we got together, he moved in, wasn't big enough. And so we bought, and during COVID, this was during COVID, so when everybody had gone a bit doolally, we sold the house, got married all at the same time, February 2020, COVID came, and we bought like the biggest house that we could afford. And we didn't know what to do with this house. We didn't know how to live in it. It was too big, and it was like, we don't need this enormous kitchen, dining, living room, and this enormous lounge with like this weird sunroom bit at the end of it. And it's like, how many places do 2 people need to sit? We had like 3 or 4 places just downstairs where we could sit, and it's like, this doesn't make any sense. So we only lived there for 2 years, and then we moved up here to the edge of the Peak District, and still a 4-bed, but a much smaller one. We live in it better, right? And it's interesting that just because you can doesn't mean you have to. So we bought this big house because we could, but we didn't need to because we didn't know what to do with it, and obviously it was expensive. So it's kind of quite interesting to look at things that you think you want, and it's like, what does matter to me? So I ask you, what does matter to you in life? What is really important? And it's not all about the house that you live in, right? You might rent your property. You might be mortgage free. You're lucky so-and-so. Yeah, never get divorced. It's very expensive. But it's, it could be that you live in a small house, but in the middle of a like utterly beautiful area where it's much more expensive. Or you live in a bigger house in an up and coming area. There's so much to kind of consider, but it's about how you want to live your life. And that's what's so important in business. When you have your own business, it's like the business needs to facilitate and create the life that you want and fit around the life that you want, not the other way around. Life shouldn't fit around your business. Business should fit around your life. And your vision needs to include as well the reality of life, right? If you've got kids, then that makes a difference. If you have caring commitments with parents or whatever, or even a dog, that makes a difference. There are lots of things that are facts of life. Some we choose, some we don't. And they exist. And so if the vision is to be a digital nomad working in Bali, and then, I'm just going to hop to the Caribbean, and then I'm going to go to Thailand, and that would be a long journey around. You wouldn't go that way around. But if that's what you're doing, but actually you've got school-age kids, they go to school rather than being homeschooled, you can't do it, right? So the vision doesn't match the reality. And it's not to say that you can't change your reality to a certain extent, but there are facts of life that will stay as facts of life, right? And always say to my clients, to my Confidence to Grow group members, the business has to fit around the life. And that's really why I've called this podcast Life in Business, and my book as well is also called Life in Business, available on Amazon if you want to find it. Because it is, life and business, life in business, they go hand in hand, they dovetail, and they have to dovetail. And trying to fight against that's just going to be counterproductive. And it isn't going to make any sense. And it isn't going to fit any kind of vision. Yeah? And unless you want to just up sticks and leave all your responsibilities, including your children, behind, then, fine, have whatever vision you like. But generally speaking, people quite like their children. So, we tend to include them in our plans. So having one big vision is great, right? One big vision of how you would like life to be, how you would like life to feel. Yeah. It's really that feeling of contentment. That's when you know you've made it. That's when you know you're there. It's when you're just like, do you know what? Life is good. And that's what we're striving for. That's the thing that we want. And it's not a case of chasing utopia and I'll be happy when this, and this. It's just like, I'm going to know when I'm on the right path, or I know I am on the right path because I can feel this feeling coming and I can feel moments of it. And I know that if I keep doing what I'm doing, it's going to be there. It's going to be there all the time. And this is what I've wanted. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily revolve around a great big house with a big double garage. Probably doesn't. And the way to work back from that, right, is to have kind of lots of smaller micro visions, because this big vision, this vision could be so far away from where you are now and could involve some big changes, like a different house, like moving to a different area, like getting rid of a husband or getting a new husband or partner or whatever. It could involve some big changes like that, getting rid of your children, whatever it is that you want to do. And so the micro visions, the step changes, the tangible measurements, they're really so important as well, because you can't just measure your success. And I say that with a kind of with hesitancy, because success is relative, and let's call it this comfortable success. Yeah, this feeling of being in the right place and everything's rosy. That's achieving the vision. So you need almost like micro visions along the way to be able to know that you're on the right path, and it will involve these pillars of being stable, of being comfortable, of having freedom, whatever your pillars are, yeah? Of knowing that's happening. And if you have your micro pillars, your micro vision measurements in place, then you'll be much more motivated, because you'll think, oh yeah, here we go, I'm on this one. This is a proper step towards where I want to be. And it's just such a nice way to do it. And it isn't, generally speaking, measured by money. Money matters. Absolutely, money matters enormously. turnover matters, but profit matters far more than that. You've got to have enough money to do what you want. But you also have to know that the money goals you are working towards actually align with the life goals that you want, right? So if your vision involves you going and living in in a cabin up on the west coast of Scotland that you can buy for 150,000, let's say, something like that, then that's very different than if your vision involves you buying a 2 million, 3 million pound flat in Canary Wharf in London. The financial requirement to get to where you want to be differs. And that's really important to remember. And that's why I always say, just chasing 10K months doesn't make any sense, right? It just doesn't make any sense as a thing to do. That in itself is not a vision. It's not a vision. It's not a measurable. I mean, it is because it's a number, but it's pointless. It's got to be about what you actually want from life. And that does come down to feelings. And it always kind of surprises me that I talk about how you feel so much, because I never think of myself as a particularly emotional person. I like numbers, I like facts, I like figures, and I'm autistic, right? So I like data, because you can't argue with data. But this, honestly, it's the most important thing, is this feeling. And I have really leaned into it over the last couple of years, and even more so as I kind of work on my own personal development and professional development, but personal development, understanding who I am and what I want. And it does really it boils down to, do I feel comfortable? Do I feel safe? Do I feel happy? And it's like, oh yeah, well, okay, that's easy. And it's much easier than striving for financial numbers just because. Funny, I remember years ago when I'd first got my first member of staff, and so this was 2012, possibly early 2013. And we had our office, and I remember we had a whiteboard where we put all the kind of sales numbers on. And I remember saying to her, right, I'm going to up our monthly goal to 12 grand. We're nearly there. We were on, I don't know, we did regularly did 10 and a half, maybe 11K months turnover. And I just said, yeah, we'll put it up to 12 as our new goal. And it was just like, it was just so pointless. It was just like, it was just a number because I could. And yeah, it's weird, isn't it? How to kind of think back on your journey and the things that you thought mattered. But actually it's like, maybe just look at how to be happy instead. And that's a healthier vision. But we learned these things, and that was a very long time ago in a very different version of me. So think about what you can measure in your business. So think about what tangible milestones you can have to get you towards this, these micro visions, to get you towards this life that you really, really want. And I think if you really, really think about it, you might be surprised about what matters to you and about what you want from life. Because I think that we all are, and certainly since COVID, I think COVID changed that whole 4 years, I guess, really, 3-4 years in total, 3 years, 3 years of disruption in total. It did change a lot of us because we had to live differently. And so out of that, after that, some of the choices that we make are perhaps a little bit more thought through. We do value being able to see people in person still. So in-person events are, wonderful, wonderful things because people get a bit zoomed out or teamed out, whichever you use. And so there is, that matters, those life experiences matter, that quality time matters. So think about what you want. Think about what it is that you want. And actually, if you need some help on this, there's I created a guide. It's completely free. So if you go to libbylangley.com/guide, then you can download the PDF that talks through kind of why things might not be in alignment for you in your business and how to think about it differently. And it will help you determine kind of what you really want from life and what your vision is. So yeah, go to libbylangley.com/guide, and that'll be something useful for you. Completely free. Obviously, I'll email it to you, right? But to get your hands on that, because that'd be useful. And then when you have thought about this and you've maybe changed your vision, you've maybe taken the white Mercedes off your vision board and put something that actually matters to you back up instead, then you'll be able to take pointful actions, right, rather than pointless. I don't know what the opposite of pointless is. So pointful, pointed, worthwhile. But yeah, not pointless, but pointful actions to get you there. And what that does is it actually reduces your workload too. Yeah, it reduces the stress on your shoulders. It reduces the amount of things that you've got to do because you're much clearer about where you want to go. So you're like, is this going to help me? Yes, no. Is this going to help me? Yes, no. Is this going to help me? Yes, no. And it eliminates loads of stuff, which is absolutely fantastic because remember, if the ultimate kind of goal for everything, for having the business is more time freedom, more financial freedom, you want to work less, right? It's as simple as that. So yeah, every step you take needs to be in the right direction, but you need to know what that direction is. Okay. Good stuff today. I would love to know what your vision is and if you've refocused it, if you've changed it from what you thought it was. Please do email me or message me on Instagram or LinkedIn. I'm Libby Langley all over the place. I really genuinely like hearing from people. And I know sometimes when I get messages from people, they're like, oh, I didn't know whether to message you or not. And I'm like, no, man, I love it. Please message me and we'll have a little chat. And it makes this worthwhile for me. And I love to be able to hear from you because I know that it's made it worthwhile for you listening to this. And that's what matters to me, right? So thanks for joining me again today on episode 94. I'll see you next week for episode 95 of Life in Business. Lots of love. Bye. Thank you for listening to Life in Business. Please make sure that you subscribe or follow so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you enjoyed today's show, please leave a review as it helps others to find the podcast and spread the word that there's an easier way to do business. If you want to chat with me about today's episode or suggest a topic for the future, I would love to hear from you. You can find me on Instagram @Libby Langley. See you next week.